Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here is your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, February 21st, 2025. And thank you for joining another episode in season 4 of the People in Fundraising podcast. We're nearing year 3 of this weekly nonprofit series that invites development leaders, just like today's guest, Dzenan Berberovic, to our program, and to have today Dzenan talk about his career journey. Good morning, Dzenan. It's nice to meet you.
Good morning and happy Friday, Tim.
Same to you. If you could just tell our guests, please, your role, your company, and you're my first guest from South Dakota, recommended by Cherian Koshy. So honored to have you here.
Well, thank you so much, Tim. Thrilled to be with you and thrilled to be with the many individuals and philanthropy colleagues who listen to your weekly podcast. I'm Dzenan Berberovic. I serve as Chief Philanthropy Officer for Avera. Avera is a large integrated health system. We span about 72,000 square miles across the upper Midwest. So we have a presence in South Dakota, which is where I'm based, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, and then we also have a long-term care and senior living community in the state of North Dakota. Blessed to be part of an organization that serves about 1 million people throughout the year. So we provide care to newborns, or actually even before someone's life on earth begins, all the way into when someone is taking their final breath through our hospice facilities and our in-home hospice programs.
Terrific. Thank you for giving us that context about Avera. And you've worked there for 8 years. We'll get into that in a follow-up question. First, Dzenan, as I do with every guest, I'd love for you to take a few minutes, please, to tell us how you entered the fundraising development profession and how you got to where you are today, please.
Sure, I would love to. So for me, Tim, as I think back on life, I believe that I was called to do this work really from a vulnerable place. As a not quite 3-year-old, my mom and I fled the war in Bosnia. Unfortunately, my dad passed away in the war at that time, and we lived in Germany for about 6 years in a refugee camp that was run by an order of nuns. And one of the key connection points for me of serving at Avera is that we are a health ministry that's co-sponsored by 2 orders of vowed religious women, the Presentation Sisters and the Benedictine Sisters, whose roots go back 125 years and more in providing care to this part of the country. Wow. So my passion for wanting to do this type of work really began at a young age because we were helped by people during truly vulnerable times in our life. And at the age of 9, we moved to South Dakota from Germany through a refugee resettlement program, which was funded through philanthropic support, of course. And then as a high schooler, I had various volunteer experiences through student council or sports or other activities that led me to want to work in the nonprofit sector. I had no idea at 16, 17 years old that fundraising was so vital to our sector. And so when I went to college, I knew what I wanted to do someday, which was to work in the nonprofit sector. What I didn't know was what major or what route to take. And so ended up choosing my major based on some things that my academic advisor at that time felt would complement very well with working in the nonprofit sector. But as a student, I worked in the foundation as a student caller. I also did tours for the president's office as well as for prospective students. And so many of the tours that were managed by the president's office were for benefactors or key constituents to the
Oh, sure.
university. And so I was exposed to the work of philanthropy through a couple different lenses, through as a student caller, but then also as someone who was engaged in the cultivation process and oftentimes
Sure.
also the stewardship process for prospective benefactors.
Mm.
However, one of the key things that happened to me was I ended up receiving and being blessed to receive a full tuition scholarship to attend the University of South Dakota. And
Mm.
that changed my life.
Sure.
It changed my life and it changed the life of my mom because it meant that she didn't have to work a third job to pay for me to go to college. So I could focus on part-time work. I could focus, most importantly, on my academics and on co-curricular involvement while I was in school. And so
Mm.
very quickly, I think that allowed me to understand how important philanthropy was. And so, as a college student, I would oftentimes tell people that I wanted to be a major giving officer. Of course, my friends had no idea what that meant. And so that would, spark conversation and spark the opportunity for me to educate them on this type of work. And so, very quickly, I knew that this was what I wanted to do and felt that my personal talents and my God-given talents lended themselves well to doing this type of work. I have always loved people, have always been curious about people's stories, have
Sure.
clearly always had a passion for making a difference, for giving back. And so I feel like all of that merged really well when I was given the opportunity to start full-time work in the nonprofit sector as a fundraiser.
Wow. Wow. That is a remarkable story, Dzenan. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm just struck by, out of some really dire circumstances, um, you were, as you mentioned, you were blessed to have the full scholarship and recognized your own talents and your God-given talents to really channel into something you've already been exposed to, through your student volunteering. And that, most people don't get that sense of in college, maybe that sense of, oh, these are my skills and this is what I want to do right from the get-go. So that in itself is remarkable.
Yeah, so many people I think joke that they find themselves one day working in fundraising, not intending to do it, but their professional journey or life experiences lead them to do that type of work. Mine did as well. They just happened much earlier.
Yeah.
So they happened when I was, in those very formative years of age 2 to 9 years old. And then when we moved to the United States, and there is this incredible kindness that I've been shown my entire life, especially during times of significant vulnerability or of times that were very dark in my life and my mom's life that I think helped to move me to a place where I knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Beautifully put. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. Um, Speaking, and you mentioned, you love to hear people's stories and benefit from others' experiences. I would love to hear anything else you'd like to share about the story of Avera Health, its mission. You talked a little bit at the beginning. You've been there for 8 years. I'm curious, what has kept you at Avera, and you've risen now to your current position. So there must be something or some ingredients that are very motivating for you to buy into its mission.
Yeah, there's several things I could talk about Avera for hours, but I'll keep it brief. So I think we all do our best work when we do work that brings us alive. And
Yeah.
we also do our best work when we're part of organizations that make us better people. I was blessed 8 years ago to join an organization that makes me a better person every single day. So Avera's mission at its core is to make a positive impact in people's lives and in the communities where we serve. And that goes back to the founding of this organization as well as our predecessor institutions. Avera is a result of two Catholic health systems coming together,
Oh, okay.
both run by sisters that called South Dakota home. The
Okay.
Benedictine sisters in Yankton and the Presentation sisters, who are based in Aberdeen, South Dakota, each ran and operated their own health ministries.
Yeah.
However, in the late 90s, the two orders decided that they would be much stronger if
Mm,
they merged their assets and merged their two health systems to become one. And so
okay.
we became Avera as a result of that, almost exactly 25 years ago. In fact, this
Oh,
is the
okay.
25th year that Avera has been in existence. And so for me, our work is so personal. I had a job that I loved prior to coming to Avera. In fact, it took me 6 months to say yes to the opportunity to come to Avera. I had a job at the University of South Dakota Foundation where I thought I would be my entire career.
Sure.
Um, I had held various roles there, started, of course, as a student caller. And then when I first began there, I was a leadership annual giving
Okay.
officer. But by the time I left, I was really leading their principal giving efforts as part of a $250 million comprehensive campaign. At that time, the largest campaign in South Dakota. And so I had a job that truly I loved
Sure.
because the mission was so personal to me. And
Yes.
then I came to Avera, and on my first day of working here, we were embarking on a campaign to create an endowment to fund our hospice programs, both our inpatient and our at-home hospice programs. And I went on a tour that afternoon on my first day of our Doherty Hospice House, which was funded through philanthropic support 10 years prior when it was built. And as we wrapped up the tour, Kathy Kellogg, who still leads that program, said to me, Dzenan, remind me to tell you about room number 16. And I thought to myself, okay, there's got to be an amazing story that Kathy feels is important for me to know as a fundraising professional. And we wrapped up, and Kathy said, okay, I'm going to come back to that room I pointed out to you, room number 16. And I said, yeah, tell me more. And Kathy said, the individual who's passing in that room right now has been unhoused for 3 decades.
Whoa. Wow.
But the care team felt that they deserved to pass in a place of dignity and a place of love, not on the street, not
Yeah.
under a bridge, not in an unhoused shelter, but we felt that he deserved to pass here at the Doherty Hospice House. And
Wow.
Tim, I still get goosebumps thinking about that because it was at that moment when
Mhm.
the mission of this very large, complex health system
Yeah.
clicked that
Sure.
when people give to our organization, they give to people's lives.
Yes.
And, oftentimes in healthcare philanthropy, gifts come from a very emotional place. In higher education, they come from emotion, but they come from spirit and from pride
Yeah.
and from gratitude that you figure out decades later. You figure out that you became the person that you were meant to be because of the experiences that you had
Yeah.
18, 19, 21, 22 years old. In
Yeah.
healthcare, that gratitude comes very quickly. It's because
Yes.
your life was saved or changed, or you held the hand of a loved one whose life was changed or saved. And so that comes with significant emotion, and that emotion is raw and it happens very quickly after that care experience.
Yes. That is very moving. And yeah, that a beautiful anecdote that crystallizes the importance of healthcare services that in itself, and then the importance of funding to provide those healthcare services. Thank you for sharing that. I'm struck by two things, Dzenan. One, you mentioned that Avera, as its current entity, is celebrating 25 years this year in 2025. Are there
Yes.
any plans to celebrate that?
Yeah, so we are actually working on and finalizing some of our plans
Oh,
to
cool.
celebrate this organization for nearly a full year. And so there's some things that we'll launch during Founders Month, which we celebrate in September.
Okay.
But then, of course, there will be some other opportunities for us to come together and celebrate the amazing work taking place. One of the historic pieces that took place this year in 2025 is we have launched a comprehensive campaign for women's and children's services.
Okay.
It's actually the largest campaign in the region dedicated for caring for women, for newborns, and for children. And so, one of those initiatives as part of that campaign is we're building a new women's and children's hospital, which
Wow.
only makes sense because the sisters have been caring for children and for women and newborns for more than 125 years. And so we're blessed to carry out that incredible work for generations to come.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's exciting. I'm also struck, this is, Avera is another example where its roots are in, um, sisters. You mentioned Benedictine. I know Intermountain Healthcare, where I previously worked, was originally started by the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Yeah.
Saints. And then I think in the 1970s, just like the two sister orders you mentioned that unified and then launched Avera, the Mormon Church, said, "Hey, here you go. We're gifting our system to the community." And then I think a year or two ago, Intermountain acquired, I think it was SCL, which is also a Midwestern based
Yeah.
healthcare system. So I'm just very struck that so many modern healthcare systems have their roots in these religious orders, and that these private entities still maintain that grace, the community feel, the personal care that sisters and religious orders used to start these entities in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us at Avera, we're blessed that the sisters are still engaged in our organization. So we have several who serve as senior leaders for mission within our
Wow.
hospitals. And then, of course, from a governance standpoint, the sisters are involved every single day in ensuring that we carry out our mission. And I think hospitals are such special places. It didn't take us living through a pandemic to know how special hospitals are. But then when you look beneath the buildings and you think beneath the care that you or a loved one maybe experience within your hospitals, they were all started by just community members, or they were started by religious orders. And I think so many hospitals, despite that they're 100 and 125 plus years old from the time that they were founded, some of those foundational and mission pieces still resonate today
Totally.
and are still very much part of who they are. So for us, the mission of this incredible institution and our founding roots are weaved through the fabric of this organization through every corner. And, we span from Nebraska up to North Dakota and over to Minnesota and then back to central South Dakota. So that's a large footprint. But what we
Yes.
are is that mission is core, that mission exists every single day.
Yes, beautifully put. Thank you. Um, so I really appreciate these responses, Janan. I want to talk a little bit about some awards that you have received, in your career. So you've been recognized for significant success by AHP on its 40 under 40 list and by the Catholic Health Association, the CHA, in its 2023 Class of Tomorrow list. So congratulations. And I'm wondering, you noted in your CHA acceptance that, quote, "This recognition belongs to the thousands of benefactors I have met throughout my career, the colleagues I serve with at Avera, and our dedicated teammates across the ministry." And I just was struck by the gratitude that you extended to all these different entities in a time when you were being honored, for your success. And I think that's just very humble and impressive. what do these awards mean for you and reflecting the mission of Avera and the people that you work with, please?
Thank you, Tim. I wouldn't be where I'm at without those people. So it was very easy to express gratitude to the people that got me to this point. I think about the incredible benefactors that I've met along my career, and their stories are emblazoned in my heart and in my mind. Um, I think of the people who, when I was 22, 23 years old, just getting started, who didn't treat me as a 22, 23-year old,
Mm,
um, who trusted me with their their life story, who trusted me with their assets that they were gifting at that time to the university, who thought of me on the day when they were diagnosed with advanced stage cancer and they called the people who they loved and cared about most in their life. They thought to call me.
yeah.
And I think about people who, like, I was invited to their surprise 80th birthday party, or the benefactors whose funerals I was asked to speak at.
Mm,
We get to build such incredible relationships when we think about the people who we meet and not think about the dollars that we're going to invite them to provide to our individual organizations. And I recognize that when we do this work well, we get to be custodians of really special organizations. Um, in my case, I've truly only worked at two places
yeah.
my entire career. I got to be a custodian of two very special causes that mean the world to me.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so, expressing gratitude to my colleagues, to um, our benefactors, of course, to all the people that brought me to this place. I would not be at Avera had it not been for the opportunity that I got to build and serve as the relationship manager to our immediate past CEO of our organization in my former job. It was that I built a relationship with Bob and with his wife, Lori, and that turned into a job at Avera. I certainly wasn't looking.
Yeah.
It ended up just working out that I built an authentic relationship, and Bob thought that I needed to come and serve at Avera. So I wouldn't be where I'm at without the people I've met along the way. And I can tell you countless stories of times when I've just sat back and teared up at the privilege that I've had to get to know these individuals and be able to be part of their life, but also bring meaning and significance to their lives because there's a point when we all feel that we have everything in the world.
Sure.
One thing that when we do fundraising really well, we get to bring meaning and significance to their lives. And that's done through building authentic relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And as you were talking, Janan, I was thinking of a few other guests that have also spoken movingly about experiences, particularly in healthcare philanthropy, where you know, grateful patients have expressed the same words you just used, like it's a privilege for us to give back. Um, and in some of those anecdotes, the end result was not positive. Unfortunately, um, the family members did not pull through their medical crisis, and yet the family, and then the weeks or months or years afterwards felt like we want to honor our loved ones certainly, and express our appreciation for the care that they did receive, the attention that we received. And they use those words, gratitude and privilege, just as you did on the other side of the equation. And I think that really demonstrates the impact of healthcare philanthropy.
Yeah, it is. I'm reminded every single day that Avera and many health systems likely are in this same group mean the world to people. They mean the
Yes.
world to those who show up every single day to live out their life's work here, but they mean the world to the grateful patients or the families that accompanied a loved one on a journey. And only two things happen at hospitals. a life is saved or a life is changed forever.
Yes. Yeah, that is profound. Thank you for sharing that. Dzenan, we have about 5 minutes left. I so appreciate your time today. Um, you've shared some great anecdotes. When I air this podcast on LinkedIn, I will include the link to a 2023 University of South Dakota profile on you. Um, it's very moving as I read it, and you have shared numerous anecdotes that would relate to a question about that. But I just want to share with our audience a quote that you gave in that 2023 profile that, quote, philanthropy and generous individuals were part of my life's journey and part of some of the most pivotal moments of my life. So I just want to share that full article so our audience gets to read more about you when this goes live. Looking ahead, Dzenan, you've been in your current position at Avera for 5 years. So and your tenure is 8 years there. What goals might you have related to your career or for Avera Health in the next 5 years? And that includes Founders Day in September and the 25th anniversary celebrations, but anything even beyond that come to mind, please.
Yeah, what an amazing question. So, a couple things come to mind for me. Our North Star in the foundation is we share a commitment to providing every constituent a gratifying giving experience.
Hmm.
First and foremost, I want to make sure that that continues for our team. But we have also had such tremendous growth as a foundation team because philanthropy is really a focal point here at Avera. It's not a nice to have, it's not something that we have because hospitals rely on generous support from individuals, and so we need a foundation. It's because it's truly a difference maker in so many projects that we embark on or projects that we're even discerning to do. And so as I look to the future, I think about by that point, the new Women's and Children's Hospital will be open.
Mhm.
Our Tomorrow's Promise campaign will be completed.
Mm.
Our strategic plan, which launched just last week, will conclude in 3 years from now. And
Wow.
so I think about Avera's bright future and the countless lives that we're going to be able to touch through the work of our strategic plan and how beautifully philanthropy is weaved across this organization where it exists in every single place. And our team has grown philanthropy from a high of 17.7 million is the most we had ever raised to most recently we raised more than $53 million.
Wow.
So I think about the difference, the many, many more individuals who are going to continue to be part of this work, who are going to have their lives touched as a result of philanthropy, either as the grateful giver or as the grateful recipient of philanthropy. And hopefully you get a sense of understanding why I love this organization. I shared with you that Avera makes me a better person, and I hope to continue to serve here because this organization truly means the world to so many people in this region. And it's an honor. It's really an honor to be part of this work.
Yes. Well, there were so many beautiful sentiments you just expressed. You know, the honor, the excitement for the future, um, and cobbling those together with the processes, the strategic plan that just was finalized, um, the Women and Children's Hospital, your campaign that you're in right now. Like there's just so much excitement. I can tell in your voice that this is a really special and exciting place to be. And it's been an honor to give you some time today, Dzenan, to share your story with our audience and talk about Avera and how it is prompting you to be a better person each day. It's really, really touching. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. What an honor to be with you today.
My pleasure. And I'm so glad that we're connected. I look forward to following you along and wish you and Avera much continued success into your promising future.
Thank you, Tim. I'll be cheering for you as well.
Thank you. So for our audience, you can find this really rich and insightful conversation with Dzenan Berberovic on my 4 platforms. LinkedIn in early April, which will have a link to the YouTube conversation. Then on Spotify and Podbean for the audio only, because some in my audience prefer to just listen to the audio, and that's totally fine. And finally, the 4th platform, thanks to our 100th guest, Luis Diaz of the Donor Participation Project, who is sponsoring my new website. You can find Dzenan's conversation at peopleinfundraising.wordifysites.com. So again, Dzenan, your conversation will air in April, and I'm very excited to share your insights with our audience at that time.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day, and thanks for everyone for your support of this podcast.